This webinar will begin in 3 minutes. Thank you. This webinar will begin momentarily. Thank you. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Rotor Consulting's webinar on A Sixth Sense for Project Management. My name is Christina Reed, the Assistant to the President here at Rotor Consulting and host for today's webinar. I'm very pleased that you are joining us today. In a few moments, I will introduce you to Mr. Trey Rotor, President and Founder of Rotor Consulting and the speaker for today's webinar. But before I begin, I have a couple of housekeeping items I'd like to share with you. For those of you who have joined us in the past, welcome back. This should be a refresher for you. However, for those of you who are brand new to Rotor Consulting's webinars, welcome. You're in for a special treat. Now, there are approximately 600 of you on this webinar today, and that's awesome, beyond all belief. However, as you know, you should be streaming live through your computer speakers, which means we won't be able to have open dialogue with you. But we are able to communicate with you in other ways. As many of you have done, there is a question and answer panel to the right of your screen. Should be right here, as you can see, in yellow, which is probably not a great color, but yeah. This will be the way that we communicate with one another. Please give us your questions, comments, anything that you'd like. This is pretty much the main way that you will be able to communicate with us. Now, I'm very, very excited about this webinar because I'm going to be tweeting about it for the next hour. Rotor Consulting is on Twitter. You can follow us at Rotor Consult, or you can just tweet about this webinar along with me. The hash mark is the number 6, SENSE, S-E-N-S-E, PM, as in 6 cents for project management. So again, all you Twitter people out there, tweet about this webinar, as I will be doing as well. Should you have any problems with the WebEx platform, as some of you have, the two numbers are on your screen. The event number is 792-240-532. Again, should you have any problems or any questions, if you lose audio or video or can't see the PowerPoint presentation for some reason, I would strongly suggest calling WebEx. They are pretty good about being on top of things. PDU form and presentation. At the end of this webinar, you will receive your one PDU, if you so choose to claim it. The PDU form and the PowerPoint presentation will be available at the end of the webinar. A couple of you have been asking if this webinar will be recorded. The answer is yes. Should you want a link to the webinar, please feel free to email me at read_Christina@rotorconsulting.com. Again, I will make this announcement at the end of the webinar as well. Now, this truly is a global webinar. I know I say that all the time, but it really is. Now, whoa, that's not me. Hold on. I am in Cleveland, Ohio, which is right here-ish, kind of. So I'm in Cleveland, Ohio. However, our speaker, Trey Roeder, is in Frankfurt, Germany. How awesome is that? I think he's 6 hours ahead of me, so I find that to be absolutely amazing. And on this webinar, I mean, like I said, it's truly global. We have people from 5 continents, 21 countries, and like I mentioned before, 600 plus people are on today's webinar. Thank you for joining us. This is truly an amazing webinar. And last but certainly not least, I wanted to highlight who is on the webinar. We have many diverse roles, from project managers, program managers, operation managers, directors of all different kinds, various analysts, business IT system team, you name it, presidents, vice presidents. We have a couple of CEOs, grad students, scientists, small business owners, engineers. The list goes on and on. Thank you all again for joining us. You guys are in for a very special treat. Now it gives me great pleasure to introduce you to Trey Roeder, President and founder of Roeder Consulting. Trey Roeder manages change successfully. He has deep industry and training and consulting experience and has been doing this for approximately 18 plus years. He is a former consultant with Booz Allen Hamilton, and in 2001, he founded Roeder Consulting. I thought I heard something, sorry. He is a proud member of the Project Management Institute, has his PMP credential, a BA from the University of Illinois in economics, and an MBA from the Kellogg School of Management at Northwestern University. He is also the author of the best-selling book, A Sixth Sense for Project Management. All the way from Frankfurt, Germany, please help me welcome Trey Roeder.
Thank you, Christina, for that very kind introduction. And thanks to each of you for joining us today for this webinar on A Sixth Sense for Project Management. I realize that many of you are in time zones that make this an inconvenient time, and I'd like to thank you especially for joining us. Whether you're in India and it's in the middle of the morning, or you're in other time zones where it might be late at night for you, I would like to thank you for being a part of this webinar when we talk about A Sixth Sense for Project Management. I am today going to discuss my book on A Sixth Sense for Project Management. This book is available for purchase on Amazon and BarnesandNoble.com in a hardcover and also in electronic versions. We mentioned specifically the Kindle and the Nook. It is also available for the iPhone and for several other handheld devices if you're interested in an electronic version. And of course, you can purchase a copy of the book at rotorconsulting.com. If you're interested in signing up for one of our training courses, that's the easiest way to do it. You can add it on to your purchase. And also, we will have a special offer that's available for the next 24 hours, and that offer is only available through our website at rotorconsulting.com. I'd like to start off by sharing with you the story of how it is that I came to be before you today talking about a sixth sense for project management. And it's a particularly timely topic for me. I landed here in Germany about 48 hours ago. And in that 48 hours, there have been a lot of changes in the current project that I'm working on. One of the key stakeholders that we thought had bought into the plan, it turns out has a different perspective on things. Some of the information that we're looking at has changed quite substantially, and I found myself in a position where I went back to what we're going to talk about today, in particular the 6 disciplines that we will discuss in the second half of this webinar, and I asked how I can apply each of those to this project right here, right now. And I hope that you find the same level of direct applicability to what we're talking about today to what you do every day in the trenches as a project manager. My story starts more than 10 years ago when I was a consultant for one of the major consulting firms. We created these strategy documents, and we presented the strategy documents and felt like that was all that needed to happen in order for the change to occur. Well, about half of the time, our clients would ask us to implement the strategies. I remember at the time thinking to myself, how difficult can that be? Implementing strategy is simply a matter of showing people our PowerPoint document. It's all right there. It clearly explains what they should be doing. Well, how do you suppose that approach worked out for me? Not so well. So I got on the internet and I looked for someone or some group of people who had thought through a more structured way to manage people during times of change. And I found the Project Management Institute. Further, I found the Project Management Professional Credential. I know that many of you on the phone here today with us are project management professionals. Did you enjoy taking that test? How much fun was that half of a day? How many times do you look at the questions and you ask yourself, is it all of these or none of these? Because that's what it feels like, but it's very difficult sometimes to narrow it down to just a few answers. Well, for those of you who are working on your PMP test, I wish you all the best. I've heard the test changed and you'll really enjoy it. So I come out and now I know how to lead change because I have a piece of paper that says so. I'm a project management professional. So now at this point in my career, I feel like I have the skills and abilities that I need to lead change. At the time I received my PMP credential, I went back into the project that I was working on and applied what I had learned. Now this project happened to be the implementation of a software system that cut across many different areas of the department. Many different areas of the organization. So I went to the IT folks and I asked them to help me put together the work units that we would need in order to build this project plan. And then I went to the other side of the building and talked to the sales and marketing people, and what I wanted from them was their schedule. Specifically, how available are you and when are you as salespeople available for the next year? And then what I wanted to do is take all of this information, these work units and these schedules and the timeline, and put it into a work plan and track earned value and crash the schedule if I needed to and do all of these things that I had learned how to do as a project management professional. Well, how do you think that worked out for me? When I went back in and asked for these work units and the schedule and the things that I'd asked for, I found that sometimes people didn't do what I asked them to do. Has that ever happened to you? And I found that sometimes people changed their mind, or people said one thing and did something else. So I thought to myself, what is going on here? I didn't learn this as part of my PMP credential. This certainly isn't covered in my PowerPoint presentations. I thought I had the skills that I needed, but maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm just a little bit slow in the uptake here. So I hired a consultant, and we went out and we talked to you. Perhaps not exactly you, but other project managers like you and professionals involved with change like you, and we asked, are these things happening in your projects? Do you have people who aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing? Do you have people who aren't reading your emails? Do you have people who are changing their minds? And you came back to us and said, yes. Yes, that is happening in our projects. So now we were intrigued. We wanted to know more. And we went back to you and we asked you to give us a little bit more detail on what exactly was going on. And you said things like, well, I wish that people would buy in to what we're trying to do. I wish that communication was better so people would fully understand the intent of what we're trying to do and read the messages that I'm sending to them. I wish, you told us, executives would have a better feel and appreciation for what I'm trying to do every day to help this organization improve. It turns out about 10% of you who we talked to are executives, and what you told us is that you wanted the project manager to walk in your shoes for a few days. You wanted the project management person or function in your organization to understand all of the moving pieces at your level, all of the different decisions that are involved. So one day, myself and this consultant, who's now an employee with our company, we're looking through all of this information and scratching our heads and asking ourselves what to name it, what to name this blind spot. It was beyond those technical skills that we learned if we were PMP certified, or if you're a Scrum Master through Agile, or here in Europe there are many people who are Prince 2 certified, and increasingly in the United States as well. ITIL, the list goes on. All of these certifications teach us important skills, but there's more to it than that. And I had, as I looked through this list, I had what I guess you might call an aha moment. I jumped up and said, it's almost as if we need a sixth sense for project management. And since then, everything that Rotor Consulting has done on the training side of its business has been focused on helping us as a community do a better job managing the human side of change. And that led to some 5 years of effort that resulted in this book that was just published within the last month. I'd like to ask you, before I get into the details here, how many of you have participated in one of our monthly webinars in the past? You will see on the right-hand side of your screen now, probably the video go away, and a poll will have just opened up asking you if you have participated in one of our webinars in the past. We are pleased to have just celebrated our 1-year anniversary on these webinars, and it's been a lot of fun. We really enjoy doing these. So I'd like to extend what Christina said at the beginning. If you have been with us during that year or part of that year, welcome back. We truly appreciate having you as part of the family. And if this is your first time, we hope it won't be the last. We hope that you consider joining us for future webinars. We do these every month. They're free, and they're focused on the human side of change, and we have an exciting lineup for this spring and going into the summer that you're not going to want to miss. We have about 10 seconds left on this survey. This will also help me gauge what speed to go at as I go through some of the things, because for those of you who've joined us for prior surveys, you will have heard several of the things that we are discussing today. Now, the survey has just closed. It will take the WebEx platform about 30 seconds or so to summarize the results, and as soon as we have the results, Christina will either share them on the screen here or tell us what those results are, or perhaps both.
I can actually do both. Let's see. Can you see them now?
Yes, it looks like about a little bit more than 50%, perhaps 60% of the group has been with us before, and the remaining folks have not.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to go back to the video. One note on the video. When we open up a poll, it will close your video panel. The way that you open it again is by clicking on the little triangle that's next to the word video. We found that most of you enjoy having the video. Most of you believe that it makes it more interactive and a pleasant experience. However, some people are distracted by it, and if that's the case, you can close that video window by clicking on that same triangle on the right-hand side of your screen. I'd like to ask one more question about you as a group, and that is, what industry do you represent? Are you in the manufacturing industry, a service business such as ourselves, government, healthcare, retail, not-for-profit? We found that many people from the academic community are interested in what we're doing, and we're very interested in what's happening in academia as well. In fact, as we go through the course of our next hour together, I'll share with you some studies that have come out of academia, and also, we have a lot of interaction on an ongoing basis with some of the leaders in the academic community when it comes to project management, because this discipline of managing people during times of change is really quite tricky. And we're at a fascinating crossroads in the history of mankind, I believe, in that we now have new science, new technology that enables us to learn more about the human experience than we ever have been able to. And some folks in academia as well as industry are staying at the forefront of that, and we like to be close to that and share it with you in our webinars and in our training courses, and you'll find a lot of that in the book as well. Now, this survey has just closed, so we'll give it another 15 seconds or so to summarize the results. With a group this size, it takes a little bit of time for the technology to work through everyone's answers and build it into those bar charts that you saw. And here you see the results. It looks like today we have many folks from service, welcome, manufacturing, healthcare, super, retail, and a lot of others as well. Thanks, everyone, for being a part of our conversation today. Let's start at the core. Let's start at the core of project management. And the base of what we do is creating results. Projects are about creating results. In fact, speaking of academic research, fascinating research shows that stakeholders overall are more concerned about results than anything else. They're more concerned about results than whether or not a project is completed on budget. They're more concerned about results than whether or not a project is completed on time. Now, this is a little bit counterintuitive to those of us who professionally manage projects for a living, because so much of what we focus on is doing things on time and within budget. But after the fact, when all is said and done, when stakeholders look back on a project, they are much more likely to say that we did a good job if we delivered a result, even if it might have been a little bit over budget or a little bit off time. Now, clearly, I'm not saying that managing to time and budget are unimportant, but the relative importance of them might not be exactly what we would suspect. Now, here's a final interesting note on this research. It's from 1974. This is from a research study that was commissioned by NASA to take a look at overall project success. And this research found some 25 years ago that project management is about results. So how do we deliver results? The three skills that we all need to deliver results are, first, technical skills. Those are the technical project management skills that you learned if you were certified, that you may have learned through your organization, through a PMO or your peers, or perhaps you use Microsoft Excel to manage your projects, or even handwritten notes with some sort of a timeline. Projects need some sort of structure. Have you seen someone try to manage a project without a structure? It usually doesn't work out very well, does it? The first leg of the stool are technical skills. The second leg of the stool is business acumen. I was at the PMI Congress 3 years ago in Denver, Colorado, and a gentleman asked the following question to a room of several hundred project managers. He asked, what if your project completes on time, in budget, and within scope, but does absolutely nothing to deliver value for your organization? Whose problem is that? Well, a room full of project managers started showing nonverbal behavior indicating that they didn't think it was their problem. And finally, one brave soul stood up and grabbed the microphone and said, that would be an executive problem. And everyone laughed and clapped their hands and pointed to this gentleman and said, yes, an executive problem, an executive problem. Well, I submit to you that it is our problem, that we as project managers must not be only accountable to deliverables, but to actual results. And that ties directly with the research study that's now some 25 years old that I just discussed, saying that people care about results. Now, I know that many of you are in organizations where it doesn't work this way. And I know that many of you are in places where the project management function is told what to do and not to ask questions about it. That's a very rich area for conversation that we don't have time to get into today, but I do want to acknowledge those of you who feel as though you don't have the control that you want. And in fact, I'd like to say that all of the project managers that I have talked to in some way or form would like to have more control over their project, and there are things that we can do. There's things that we can do that no one needs to give us permission for, no one needs to promote us or give us a fancy title for, that we can exert to take more control over our projects. And that body of knowledge is embodied within a sixth sense for project management. The third leg of the stool, the first being technical skills, the second being business acumen, which is the ability and willingness to step up and say, I will take responsibility for this project's results. The third leg of the stool are those sixth sense people skills, and that's what we're here to talk about today. Now here's some bad news. A lot of projects fail. According to the latest CHAOS report, some 75% or more of projects either fail or are troubled. We don't succeed most of the time. And that's not a good story for those of us who do this professionally. Why is that? Well, here's a partial list. We won't go through all of them. Look at the first one, lack of business ownership and accountability. Have you ever had a key executive not buy into your project? Not surprisingly, that's a key reason for project failure. Look at the last one, team lacks authority or decision-making ability. We have found in surveys that we've done on these webinars that more than 75%, more than 3/4 of those of us who manage projects for a living do not have any of the stakeholders reporting directly to us. We do not have a single person whose performance review we hold, who we can change what their bonus might be at the end of the year, no formal trappings of control and power. Yet we need to get things done. Project management is very much a profession that must learn how to get things done through other people. And the ability to do that is a skill that comes from having a sixth sense for project management. Now, I mentioned that webinar data. These webinars, by the way, have been cited by MSN Money as a great way to get free ongoing credit on the internet. They ran an article about 2 months ago called Internet U, Internet University, talking about the growing number of things that people can do on the internet at no cost to increase their professional certifications. We asked this question, and there you see 76% of our respondents said they don't have anyone reporting directly to them. Now, let's talk about the relative importance of the different skills a little bit more. This research study just came out in the month of March, 2011. The researchers asked IT recruiters and IT executives what competencies were most important, what competencies were extremely important or important to their projects. The number one answer was leadership. The number two was ability to communicate. Number three was verbal skills, written skills, attitude, ability to deal with ambiguity. These are the top half dozen, unaltered from this research study, all having to do with the human side of change. What showed up last on the list? Having a PMP certification. Not saying that it's unimportant, because I believe those technical skills are very important. However, if you could only pick one, the evidence is showing us now from 2011 that the people skills are where the game is at when it comes to successfully managing change. Is this only 2011 research? Let's go back a couple years to 2007. This is a multi-year, $2.5 million research project sponsored by the Project Management Institute to ask the following question: does project management deliver value? And if it does, what are the key drivers of that value? Well, let me ask you the following question. A $2.5 million multi-year project sponsored by the Project Management Institute to answer the question, does project management deliver value? What do you suppose the answer was? If you're nodding your head and saying yes, project management does deliver value, you would be correct. This study found that. However, the study also found that project management does not always deliver value. In fact, in some cases, we make things worse. When do we make things worse? If we take the same approach, the same set of processes, the same techniques, and apply them like peanut butter across every project, every situation, every size of organization, odds are, in some cases, we are going to make things worse. We need to adjust our approach to the environment. This may be counterintuitive because there's been so much talk about the need for standards, a standard approach to project management. I discuss this in the book, how we can reconcile these two different thoughts of needing to have a standard, and in some cases it is true that standards are helpful, but also not being too standard, because over-standardizing will lead to project failure. This research study also showed us in 2007, of all the different things that they tried to correlate to project results, the one thing that rose to the top consistently was the amount of people skills training an organization had. Organizations that have more than the average amount of training on leadership and other people skills are more likely, through this empirical data, to have projects that are successfully concluded. By the way, this study did not successfully correlate project management technical skills, such as credentials, to project success. Let's go all the way back to 1987. Now, for those of you in the United States, here's a couple things that were going on in 1987. Ronald Reagan was president. Gasoline was 89 cents. The stock market took a big hit on Black Monday. Walk Like an Egyptian was the top song, and Tim Tebow and Mary Sharapova were both born in 1987. Justin Bieber? No, I don't even think his parents were born in 1987. This research from 1987 showed that the primary problems of project managers are not technical, but human. So here we're going back more than 20 years, and research study after research study keeps showing us that it's the human side of change that's directly correlated to project success. And as project managers, that's what we are after, project success. There's a new section in the PMBOK called Appendix G that does address this. It says that the effective project managers acquire a balance of technical, interpersonal, and conceptual skills. And you might recognize that as something similar to the balanced approach that we've been talking about for many years, predating PMBOK Appendix G, about technical skills, sixth sense people skills, and business acumen. So there's a conventional wisdom out there that continues to be pervasive in our industry, and that is that the first thing one should do if they want to be a project manager is to become certified. And then, over time, you learn the human side of change, perhaps, and you tweak those technical skills. But it seems the overwhelming evidence, research study after research study, is telling us that things probably are the opposite of that, that we want to master those people skills first, and after we have the people skills, then we can have a license to put some technical skills on top of it. Because technical skills without the ability, without the 6 disciplines that we're going to talk about in a minute here, not only might lead to suboptimal project results, but might make things worse. Technical skills should come with a warning label. Caution, use with discretion, because this may make things worse. There may be side effects that you didn't want. So I believe, we at Rotor Consulting believe, and a growing community of people, including many of you I know with us here today, believe, that we are entering a new era in project management. That era is marked by a profession that understands that successful projects come on not only from those technical skills, but also from very strong people skills and from business acumen, from an ability to take accountability for our business results. One of the people in the Rotor Consulting organization went back and looked through 40 years of project management doctrine. The Project Management Institute was founded in 1969. They just celebrated their 40-year anniversary, and many of the other organizations, including the European organization, and there are a number of them, have been involved with project management for quite some time. Well, the doctrine that we've had for 4 decades has been focused on technical skills. Now, we need to move beyond that. In this new era, we need to embrace the people skills and perhaps even change the priority on how we think about things and put more emphasis on the interpersonal skills and the 6 disciplines that we are going to discuss in a moment. I'd like to pause here now for several minutes to see what questions and comments you might have. If you have a question, please go to the Q&A panel on the right-hand side of your screen and type it in there. And by the way, we don't have time to answer all of the questions that come up. However, after the webinar, we will take the discussion to our LinkedIn group and continue the conversation there. If you're not a member of Rotor Consulting's LinkedIn group, I'd encourage you to join and be a part of the great conversation that we have going on there. Christina, do we have several questions yet?
We don't have several questions. We do have a question. It comes from Frederick, and this was kind of when you started talking about, what were you talking about? I forget what it was, but he asked, do you agree that the customer will forgive lateness, but will never forget poor quality? I think this is when you were talking about stakeholders who want results versus value or things like that.
Great question, Frederick. Thank you. I like to be careful not to speak in absolutes because there certainly are cases where customers won't or simply can't forgive lateness because of the urgency of a particular project. So this is situational, which is underlying the 6 disciplines of the 6 Sense for project management. We need to know our situation. However, I believe the spirit of your question is supported by a lot of the empirical evidence, and that is that after the fact, it's about the result, it's about the sustainability of the result, which would speak to quality, and the efficacy or effectiveness of that result in achieving what the organization's goal was. I think it's probably fair to say that a project manager who delivers a great result a little bit over budget is going to be better off than a project manager who delivers a 0 for their organization, but only spent 90% of their budget to deliver that nothing for their organization. Any other questions, Christina, or comments?
Yeah, there is. Now they're coming in. Gary writes, are you saying that 6th sense refers to soft skills, or is it broader, narrower than soft skills?
Another great question, thank you. A 6th sense for project management is the term that Rotor Consulting uses to describe all of the human aspects of managing change. We take a 6th sense for project management as one of 3 legs of our balanced approach, which also includes technical skills and business acumen, and together those 3 are the full body of knowledge that someone who is leading change must possess in order to be successful.
Okay, and last question before we wrap up. Jin Yun, I believe that's the name, asks, is people skills natural? What is the best approach to learn the people skills if I was not born with it?
Yes, thank you, Jin Young. A question asked by many. In fact, more specifically, what we hear a lot in the classroom is, can I develop that? Some people are just born with it. So the answer is yes, some people are born with it, and yes, you can develop it. A lot of research has been done in this area, and it's been found, and we all know this, that some people naturally are better at interacting with other people. Some people are born with an innate ability to understand others, empathize with others, read people, read a situation, and so on. The research is equally compelling in that any of us can move ourselves down the continuum to do a better job. So if you have someone who's born with excellent skills, there's still things they can do to be better at it. And if you have someone who was born with, let's say, great analytical ability an amazing ability to create spreadsheets and engineering designs and so on, but doesn't feel like they were born with those with those people skills, it can be developed. It absolutely can be developed, and I would put myself in that category as well. These are things that I learned over the years because of failed projects, because of a blind spot that I had, because I kept getting knocked over the head by the same 2x4 time after time after time, because this human side of my projects was controlling the projects and I didn't know what to do about it. Let's go to one more poll question. Before we get into the disciplines, I'm curious how familiar you are with them. Have you attended one of our classes, in which case you heard them up front? Did you hear about them briefly on a prior webinar? Some of you may have already read the book, or it may be your first time hearing about these disciplines. So this poll is now open on the right-hand side of your screen, and as soon as this poll is closed, I will begin to discuss the 6 disciplines. We created these disciplines over about a 2.5-year process, and that process included attending summits such as the Neuro Leadership Summit that was held in Italy in 2007. In this summit, some of the world's top neurologists and psychologists, organizational leaders and CEOs, and business practitioners were pulled together to discuss the science of the human experience during change and what that science can tell us about how people react during times of change. To develop these disciplines, we've also spent a lot of time going through scientific journals, scientific research, and we continue to do so. We talk to practitioners in the field. We talk to you and people like you to better understand what's happening every day in the reality of your projects. And of course, we manage projects every day ourselves, so we experience these things as well. All of that information pulled together and filtered through a process led to the 6 disciplines that we will discuss in a moment. This poll has now closed, and I see that perhaps a third, 25% to a third of the people have some familiarity with the disciplines, and the remainder, this is the first time hearing the 6 disciplines for a 6th sense for project management. It all starts with awareness. Awareness is the first of the 6 disciplines. We must be aware of ourselves, of other people, and of the situation around us before we're going to do anything to adapt our approach or determine the best way to get buy-in from a stakeholder or figure out how to communicate to an individual. We need to be aware of what is happening around us. For each of these disciplines, I'll share with you something that you can do right away to improve that discipline. And for awareness, here's something that you can try later today if you're in an earlier time zone, or tomorrow morning if you're with me in Europe or further east. The next meeting you have, while you're presenting your red, yellow, green report or your status update, pay attention to people's verbal and nonverbal behavior. It'll tell you a lot about what's going on in your project. If you're like me and you find it difficult to pay attention to verbal and nonverbal behavior at the same time you're presenting technical information, then ask someone else to do your presentation while you can monitor verbal and nonverbal behavior. Or ask a trusted colleague to pay attention to that behavior while you present, and then debrief with them afterwards. Make time to be aware of what's going on from a human element, not only from a timeline element. Now, with all of that awareness, it's going to bring in a lot more information, and we need something to do with that. We need to know how to process that information and how to make decisions. That leads us to the 2nd discipline of a 6th sense for project management, and that is full body decisions. If you could learn a better way to make decisions, would you be interested? If you could learn a technique to get more information than you have today when making decisions, would you be interested? If the answer is yes, then what you'd be interested in is a whole body decision. Many of us who come from analytical backgrounds, many of us who are project managers or in technical disciplines, tend to approach decision-making from a rational, brain-based, fact-based way. In fact, many of us are trained on that. Six Sigma people are told to make decisions on facts, on data. Everything else is irrelevant. Well, there's been research done on this. And what the research has found is that if you make decisions that way, you're probably going to get it about 70% of the time. That's not bad. That's a C. 70% is just barely a passing grade. But do you want to be a C, or do you want to do better? If you want to do better, we need to take that rational information and compare it with the information and data that's coming from our heart and the information and data that's coming from our gut. A lot of research has been done on this, including military research, empirical research done by people who are very serious about it. And what's been found is that the best decisions incorporate rational thinking and heart and gut. Do you realize that your gut has more nerve endings than your spinal column? Do you realize that the electromagnetic forces coming from your heart can be read by new, sensitive scientific equipment from 8 to 10 feet away? And it's hypothesized that other people can pick up on that electromagnetic wave as well. Here's something you can do right away to make a whole body decision. The next time you're confronted with a tough decision, go through the normal rational process. Get all the data, get the facts, and then let's say you have it narrowed down to 2 options. Close your eyes and think about option number 1. Review the facts in your brain, and then pay attention to your heart. Did your heart rate pick up? What about your gut? Do you feel tightness in your gut? Do you start sweating? Now think about option number 2. Maybe your heart rate slows down, your fists unclench, you stop sweating, the discomfort in your gut goes away. This is a whole body decision. This is your body telling you, for some reason, option 2 is a better option. And when you think about it, you already knew this. Do you get butterflies in your stomach before you're about to speak? Do you ever feel a little bit of indigestion or a little bit shaky when things get tough? That's your body communicating to you. And the better we are at reading that information, the better decisions we're going to make. And by the way, I'd like to say again, I know that some of you are already far down the continuum in whole body decisions. And for those of you, I'd say, great, well done, keep working it. You can always do better. And for others of you, I know because I've had the conversations with you in Boston, in San Diego, all over the place, and you might not be comfortable to this. I ask you just to consider it. Consider that maybe your heart and your gut should be sitting at the table when making decisions. Now, once you've made a decision, it needs to be communicated, and the clear communication discipline comes into play here. We need to take these ideas, these thoughts, these concepts, and figure out a way to clearly communicate them to others. There's a lot of science that we're learning about this, and there's a lot of neurology behind this as well. Different people process things in different ways. Specific to a change environment, the parts of our brain that function when we think about new ideas are different than the parts of our brain that we use when we think about habits and old ideas. And through developing your sixth sense for project management, and specifically through developing the clear communication discipline, there are things that you can do in order to become better at knowing how to tailor your messages to the situation in such a way to where they are more likely to be well received and acted upon. Something that you can do right away with the clear communication discipline is to ask yourself if there's someone, let's say, you've sent an email to 10 times and they still aren't getting it. Try a different communication channel. Try calling them. Try drawing a picture for them. Try sending them a chart. Some people aren't reading words and understanding things as clearly as you might be sort of people. They might want a chart or words. Or on the other hand, if you're a chart person, maybe you need to type it out for some people who don't process information that way. Now, we need to adapt. We need to change to the environment. That clearly came through in all of the research. You may have noticed by now that each of these disciplines has an icon. And this icon you will recognize as a chameleon. A chameleon changes its color to the environment around it, in part for safety and in part to thrive and succeed. Project managers are no different. We know that we need to adjust our approach. We need to adjust the way we address people based on that person, that day, that set of emotions, that situation. All of this comes back to the adaptability discipline. However, the chameleon also has a circle in the middle. The chameleon has a core. And I submit to you that the core is non-negotiable. We have our ethics, we have our integrity, we have our values. That is not something that we're going to change on. And if you've been managing projects for a while, you also have a project management core. Here's something that you can do right away on the adaptability discipline. Think about one thing, just one thing that the team is pushing back on, resisting, challenging you on. Tonight, make a whole body decision on that thing. Close your eyes and ask yourself, do I really need to continue doing it that way or not? If the answer is yes, I need to continue doing it that way, go back tomorrow and share with the team that you thought it through, you listened to their feedback, and you're going to keep things the way they are, and here's why. On the other hand, if you go through the process tonight and realize that you can change, that you can adapt without sacrificing the project, or maybe even to the benefit of the project, go back tomorrow and tell the team the same thing. You listen to them and you're changing. They will respect you more for that as well. The important thing is that the team knows you're listening to them and that you know that you're adjusting when you need to, but also holding your ground and being tough and fighting the good fight when you need to. Have you ever had conflict in one of your projects? I know that you have. It turns out there's a lot of neuroscience behind this as well. The way that we are wired makes change stressful for us. It goes with the territory. The diplomacy discipline tells us things that we can do in order to do a better job charting those emotional, difficult, challenging waters of change. Here's something that you can do right away with the diplomacy discipline. Think about someone who's resisting you, really giving you a tough time on your project, and ask yourself if you are treating them the way you would treat someone who just lost a loved one. Let me say that again. If someone's challenging you in a project and giving you a hard time, don't give them a hard time back. Don't push harder. Back off and be very sensitive and treat them as though you might treat someone who lost a loved one, and see if you get a different result. It turns out that change, in particular changes at work and changes to our employment status, which projects that some of us work on impact people's employment status, can be every bit as emotional to someone as loss of a loved one or divorce or moving or those challenging things that happen in life. There's no guarantee that this will work. In our buy-in class, we talk through a series of steps that you can go through. But this is one of a number of techniques that can be deployed that could help you get the buy-in and support that you need. Finally, the sixth discipline of a sixth sense for project management is good old-fashioned persistence. Successful project managers find a way to get it done, going over, around, or straight through the obstacles in front of them. However, there's something counterintuitive here. There's something that clearly came out of the science that's counterintuitive here. And it is that sometimes the best way to be persistent and the best way to deliver project results is to have a patient persistence. You might need to wait weeks or a month or two for the right time to approach someone about the change. Did you know that when we get emotional about something, angry chemicals are released into our bloodstream? And those angry chemicals take time to flush themselves out of our system? Now, I know that what I just said might not reconcile with your work plan, but let's come back to the platform we're talking about here, and that is that this human side of change, according to research study after research study, is more important to leading true change than that work plan is. Now, our challenge in today's project management environment is to reconcile those two. But the next time you're putting together a Gantt chart, a timeline, a work plan, at least consider putting in place something that will enable you to have the time that you need to help people process the change and think through the change. That's something that you can start working on the next time you're faced with creating a plan and needing to deliver results. In a couple minutes here, let's expand our conversation beyond a sixth sense for project management. I'd like to share with you just a few research studies and articles that have come out recently. One of them came from HR Executive Online, and what they found is that executives that have interpersonal skills, a sixth sense for project management, are more likely to succeed. What they found in this empirical research is that the tough guy doesn't always get things done, but the person who's tough sometimes, but sensitive and softer other times, is much more likely to get things done. Executives perform better with the sixth sense for project management. How about communications? How can a sixth sense for communications enhance our project results? It turns out, according to research from the University of Illinois, that the worst way to build a team and to establish trust is to communicate using email. What has Rotor Consulting found in our research of webinar attendees is the #1 way project managers like to communicate? Email. 49% of project managers selected email as their #1 chosen way to communicate. Yet we need to build teams, we need to build trust. In fact, according to this research, people are less likely to be fully truthful in email than they are in person or even over the phone. Communications are enhanced with a sixth sense for project management. And even more broadly, everyday health tells us that paying attention, being aware of ourselves and of other people can lead to better self-confidence and better relationships. I'm only familiar with these studies because the authors of these articles asked me, as a project management people skills person, to comment on this research. And I was quoted in each of these articles, which was something that caught me off guard. I would have expected perhaps to be asked by someone in project management, but here's disciplines that have nothing to do with project management, maybe, or maybe they do. We're finding out that interpersonal skills and a sixth sense for project management is something that can make executives perform better, that can improve our communication across all sorts of different things, and perhaps even can improve our relationships. I'd like to pause again here for 3 more minutes. We'll take a few questions, and then I'll hand off back to Christina to tell you how to claim your PDU form and to share with you a few more details about the special promotion for anyone purchasing this book in the next 24 hours from rotorconsulting.com. Christina, questions?
Yes. We haven't had many, but the questions that have come in have dealt with virtual teams communicating. You had mentioned through teams that are, well, virtual. Alicia, I believe that's her name, writes, can you please provide recommendations for virtual teams? How do you read nonverbal communications when you are in virtual teams?
A very hot topic right now. We have a new course that is being launched very shortly here on virtual teams. And what we found is that a lot more nonverbal communication can be captured than initially thought in a virtual environment. For example, tone of voice, speed of voice, word choice can all tell you something about the individual. It's not that simple. We need to understand the person. We can't just make an assumption that slow talking means X or fast talking means Y. But there are things that we can do through increased awareness of how people are talking and presenting things. Another thing that the research is showing, in fact, Professor Northcutt from the University of Illinois who is in the research study that I cited several minutes ago, has found that if you have a virtual team, if you're able to use video like what we're doing on our webinars, you're better off than not using video, because you can get more nonverbal. You can see me moving my hands, you get some general idea of my facial expression and my body motion and so on. So if you're able to use video in a virtual team environment, that is going to help you. One final thing I've had, I'd say in the limited time, is that if you are able to meet in person, even briefly, even infrequently, it's far better than not meeting at all. But there is a latency to that in-person experience. Said differently, if you met in person 3 years ago, it's probably not going to help you a whole lot today. Think about our families. If we see our parents once a year, that might not be sufficient for us. We might want to see them twice a year or 4 times a year or so on. So there's a latency in that in-person relationship. Let's take one more question, Christina.
Sure. A bunch of them have been coming up. I think this one is really interesting. Where is it? Oh my gosh. Aaron writes, soft skills are vital to doing the job, but certification is often a key factor in getting an interview in order to get the job. How do you quantify soft skills on a resume so that they hold the same weight as a certification?
Great question. And in response to that reality, I believe your comment is absolutely correct in that many firms are looking for credentials today. And many companies, when they're looking to do project management training, start with technical skills. I believe it's going to change simply because the overwhelming body of evidence is that that is not the end-all be-all, those technical skills, and in fact, it might make things worse. How do you quantify it? Well, one thing that you can do is to demonstrate in the interview that you have those sorts of skills. On a resume, however, I think that showing that you have been trained on that area or perhaps even received a certificate, we at Rotor Consulting offer a certificate program certifying people in a sixth sense for project management. And I believe increasingly employers are going to look at that sort of certification as well, showing that you have demonstrated the ability not only to pass a test on technical skills, but also to interact with people on a more personal level. I'd like to thank all of you for joining us today. I always have fun with these webinars. We will take the conversation on the LinkedIn group afterwards, and I wish you all of the best in your projects. I know that this is very challenging work, and I know that the human side of change is something that requires us oftentimes to use a different part of our being than those technical skills, and that can be uncomfortable and that can be new. But stick with it, stay the course. Best wishes with all of your projects, and thanks again for joining us today. I hope to see you next time. I'll hand off to Christina now, who will share with you more details on the special promotion we're offering and how to claim your PDU form, and also registration. As soon as we're finished here, we'll open up for next month's webinar on Agile Project Management, all of those details from Christina. Thanks so much.
Hi, whoa, I just switched it really fast. Thank you again for joining us. As Trey said, please join us on our various LinkedIn groups. I noticed that a couple of people have started following us on Twitter, so welcome. There were many, many questions that we will get to on our LinkedIn group. So I've seen a bunch of questions about multicultural teams, more virtual teams, specific questions about the book. So any of those questions will move to our LinkedIn group, so please feel free to join. We are going to be in a bunch of different areas, Calgary, Denver, Dallas, for the next couple of months. So visit our website and find out where we're going to be, and hopefully you'll be able to learn more about buy-in or virtual teams or one of the many other courses that we have available. And last but certainly not least, I completely forgot to put the website on this last slide, so I am going to put rotorconsulting.com/postwebinar.php. You should hopefully be able to see it on your screen. It's in red. It's www.roederconsulting.com consulting.com/post, as in P-O-S-T, webinar.php. On this page, you will find the PDU form, a copy of this presentation, as well as a PDF on how to claim your PDUs. PMI changed a couple of things, so we have updated that document. You will also be able to purchase the book. We do have a special offer on our online courses. For members and non-members, you can register for those courses at $289, and there are the 2 discount codes that will be on this page as well. Should you have any questions, please feel free to email me. My email is reid_Christina@rotorconsulting.com. I'll put it up on this page as well. And if you want a copy of this webinar, please send me an email. I thank you all again for joining us today. Hope you have a wonderful day. Take care now.